consult with people, especially given the fact that we represent both foreign nationals in divorce proceedings, is whether or not they have rights in family law court here in the United States. Like, do I have rights to my children? Can my spouse take my children away because I don't have any status in the United States? My status is dependent on my spouse. Like, what if we do go forward with divorce? What kind of rights do I have to stay here in the United States and I have a child or property or assets? We recently had a case where the foreign national was also in proceedings to get their conditions removed from their green card. And they were also scared that their spouse was going to file for divorce. Like, what kind of rights do I have in these immigration proceedings? And the answer is you do. There are ways to maintain your status permanently in the United States, even given the fact that you're going through a divorce, based on certain what we call waiver provisions. So there is a way to do it. In the family law case on that side, the question we get a lot is whether or not the foreign national has any rights to their children. And of course the answer is yes, you do have rights to your children. And we've worked with many families who have complicated situations where there may be an impending removal from the United States, and the fact that they still get those parenting rights is something that judges and family law courts understand. So a lot of times what we see is that the person has obtained their green card, and their green card is what's called conditional. When your green card is conditional, it's only good for 2 years, and you have to reapply to make your green card what's called permanent. So a lot of times there is a divorce during that time, and the person wants to gain their permanent status, even if they're not with their spouse anymore. In that situation, there are ways to file under the waiver provisions to get those conditions removed from the green card. The answer to the question is that immigration is very backed up, and there are different ways to keep a person here in the United States while fighting your case. If you are a victim of domestic violence, if your status in the United States depends on your spouse, who's now going to be an ex-spouse, there are multiple options that could be available to you that you want to make sure you vet out first before you even think about leaving the United States. And then there are also considerations for affirmatively leaving the United States. Let's say you do want to go home. But then there are also those foreign nationals who really want to stay in the United States, who don't want to get deported. And a lot of times what we see is that the spouse is threatened to be kicked out of the United States just because they're going through a divorce. And in those cases, it depends on the case, of course, but there are ways to keep the person here in the United States. What a lot of people don't realize when they're going through divorce proceedings, especially if they've been the spouse who has stayed at home with the kids or is not the breadwinner of the household, is that marriage is a partnership, and the courts see it as a partnership. The family law courts in Colorado are courts of equity, which means that the courts are going to look at that. Who was the breadwinner? Who stayed home? And they're going to make sure that they put those people in as similar a situation as they were when they were married, which means that the spouse who stayed home will get just as much rights, or what we like to say half, in divorce proceedings, and a lot of people don't realize that. Your first step is to change your mindset. You can do that by consulting with an attorney who has expertise in, in our case, we have expertise in both dealing with foreign nationals and in divorce. But you want to find an advocate. You want to find someone who will listen to you and listen to where you're coming from, so as to provide you with that confidence to change your mindset that you can do this. You can get out of the relationship. You are not tied to this person forever because of how they manipulate you, how they control you. You can get out of it. And we always say this, is that divorce is hard. Divorce is always hard no matter what kind of relationship you're in. But being divorced isn't.